which I'm not sure what it is. Light is bright.
Do you guys want to move over that way a little bit so we're not in the middle?
Yeah,
But that helps. It'd be cooler too. Oh, yeah, that's much better.
Everyone ready? Well, TV's coming. Okay. Get out of one light.
I'm sorry?
You get out of one light.
Who's first?
Governor, strategically, what was the aim of this speech?
To point out the basic differences between Mr. Kasich and myself, our histories, what we've supported, voted for, advocated for, and to draw as clearly as I could the choice that confronts the people of Ohio.
Governor, I saw a poll last night that had you behind. Are you concerned? Are you worried?
No, most of the polls, recent polls, have had me slightly ahead. I think it's basically a race that is very tight, and so I'm not concerned about a poll having me slightly ahead or having me slightly behind. It's going to be a very close election, and I accept that.
Governor, I think the polls last week had you, they said you were ahead, but it said that voters disapproved of the way you handled the economy, and they don't think you've kept up with your campaign promises. Are you concerned about that?
Well, of course I'm concerned if people think I haven't kept my promises. I've worked to keep my promises. I think I have. But of course that concerns me. But I'm pleased that, you know, the people of Ohio treat me well. They do. I'm out about all the time, as I was over this holiday weekend, and I consistently encounter Ohioans who understand the difficulties that our state faces and express to me their appreciation for my efforts. And so, you know, the people will decide in less than 4 months, and I will accept their conclusion, obviously. But I believe we're going to do okay because there is a definite difference between what I have done in my political life and what my opponent has done in his political life. The causes we have advocated for, the votes we have cast, and as I said, this is a stark election in that I flat out disagree with John Kasich on just about anything that is in his past record and anything that he is currently advocating for.
Governor, we talk about these polls all the time. Some Democrats across the country complain Rasmussen is leaning Republican. Would you be a Democratic incumbent who would go on record and just give your opinion of Rasmussen?
Well, I can tell you this. I have talked with highly respected national news persons who have told me that they simply pay no attention to Rasmussen polls. And so, you know, you can make up your own mind about that. But Rasmussen's results do not concern me at all.
Governor, can we fill this multi-billion-dollar alleged budget gap next year without raising taxes?
We don't know exactly what the budget gap is going to be. I've acknowledged that I think it's going to be significant. I've also acknowledged that I think raising taxes ought to be something that we do not pursue because the economy continues to be in a very fragile state. But as you know, I have refused to do what my opponent has done, and that's make a decision about what I will or will not do when I don't understand all the circumstances that I may or may not face. So I say to people, look at my past record. If you want to know how I'm likely to deal with problems going forward, look at how I've dealt with problems in the past, and I think you'll have a pretty good idea. But I'll tell you this, I am willing to determine priorities and to make tough decisions, and I will do that going forward.
Would you advocate more tax cuts?
Would I advocate more tax cuts? I think it would be hugely unwise, Joe, given the state of our budget, to advocate reducing the resources coming into our state even further.
Governor, you mentioned investments in alternative energy and
Yes.
education, some of which was possible with federal stimulus money.
Yes.
Is the state going to be able to make those same kind of investments or maintain that funding level in the next budget?
Well, perhaps not the same funding level, but part of what we invested in alternative energy came from the $1.57 billion bipartisan jobs bill that we passed. And I think we have made the investments at the most critical time for the development of these industries. Ohio has now developed a reputation as being a state that values and promotes alternative energy production. And that's why we are seeing these kind of investments being made. And I think we did it at exactly the right time. Will we be able to do it as robustly going forward? I think that's yet to be determined, but I think we made the decisions at the right time to encourage a different attitude about Ohio. When I became governor, we had no renewable portfolio standard at all. In fact, we had no real electricity modernization in place. We accomplished that, and we now have a standard that I think we can be really proud of. And people across the nation are now talking about Ohio as the place for investing in renewable and advanced energy technologies, whether it's fuel cell research, whether it's biorefineries, solar, wind, clean coal, nuclear. All of these are being aggressively pursued in Ohio right now, and I think it would not have happened had we not passed our energy bill and established the standard that we established.
Governor, you've been critical of John Kasich, as have others, about how he doesn't have any specifics yet about how he's going to govern or what things he's going to cut, and yet you haven't had very many specifics on how you're going to close the budget gap. When are you going to start laying out some specifics?
Let me invite you to do something. Go back 4 years and look at the very specific plans that I put in place, and look at the criticism that I received at that time for not being specific enough. John Kasich has got by with saying almost nothing for well over a year as a candidate for governor. And I think I have been much more specific. And in addition to that, I have been willing to lay out my record and say that this is my record. I haven't heard Mr. Kasich talking about his record. I tried to lay out his record this morning because, and by the way, we invite you to check everything that I said in the speech. You can find it in the record, the congressional record. So I think I said nothing about his record that is not supported by data.
Governor, just as a follow-up,
yes.
If there's an $8 billion problem, do you think both candidates, you and your opponent, are going to have to be specific when we get into the fall about, you've said that you won't raise taxes. Well, that leaves the question, what gets frozen or what gets cut? Do you think that both of you are going to have to answer that question?
What I have said is that I will look at the budget in the most comprehensive way. I will determine priorities. I will look at the resources that we have available to us, resources that I may be able to find elsewhere, any federal assistance that may be forthcoming. I will do all of that. But the people
Before the election or after the election?
Well, I will put forth a budget when I am required to put forth a budget if I'm elected, but the fact is that I'm the guy who has talked much more in detail about our financial circumstances, about the budget, about what I will and will not do than Mr. Kasich has.
Governor, do you anticipate renewing your push for video lottery terminals at horse tracks?
I want that certainly to be a part of the arsenal of tools that will be available to me, and that's certainly, I think, consistent with what I have said in the past.
Have you, or when are you going to push for this formal opinion on that issue?
We will pursue that at the appropriate time. It'll be probably sooner rather than later, but it is something that, as I have said, we will ask the courts to make a determination about.
You've pushed for LeBron James to stay in Cleveland,
Yes.
citing economic impact. Tomorrow's the D-Day, as we say. What do you think going into it? How do you feel about that?
Well, I called LeBron